Okay. Yeah, let's jump in then. Got a couple people in here. Hopefully we can get some. I'm really excited to get a little community feedback and kind of start showing you guys what we're doing over here. Tonight we're going to take a real close look at the Water Tribe from the first set, the first release for Flawed Card Game coming up, and I've got a couple of the sort of internal playtesters that I've used a lot while developing this game. Trollber here is actually my younger brother, and he has played hundreds of games at this point of Flawed. A lot of feedback. He comes from kind of a unique deep dive into water. Yeah, I think I put that on the like one of the Insta posts or something. But yeah, so my brother Jake here, he doesn't come from much of a card playing background. So he's been a really valuable asset to kind of get an idea of what players who, are kind of coming from the outside looking in, what they might see, and how they can take to it. And he's really gotten pretty deep into it. And then we've got Rawl, the Lethal Protector here. It's a buddy of mine, AJ. He's a local player where I live now, and has same sort of idea, jumped right in and really taken to the game, but pretty much on the opposite end of the spectrum. He's played a lot of different games competitively, and has a pretty long history with card gaming in general. So it's a broad range. Yeah, what we're gonna do is just look at some of these water cards. I mean, we do have a learn to play video in the works. It's going to be posting very soon. I really don't have a date for it yet. We've got a little bit of work to do on it, but I mean it's a top priority right now. As far as how the game works, I mean, the most basic of rundowns, both players are using a shrine, which is just like a structure that kind of represents, your faction. And the basic idea is just, I'm trying to destroy your shrine, you're trying to destroy my shrine. It's a game of warfare, right? And the short of it is that each player is taking a simultaneous turn where we're doing actions back and forth. And I've actually pulled up kind of the action card just to give a little bit of perspective of what we're talking about. Where I'm taking an action, you're taking an action, and we go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then when we're both kind of done with a given turn, that turn ends, and then you go into another turn. One of the main goals we had was that simultaneous turn creates a really interactive gameplay experience. You have next to no downtime. You're very active. You're constantly paying attention to the micro plays that your opponent is making and trying to come up with your own play to counter that, and doing stuff like that. That's a real basic overview of kind of what the game looks like. Kind of like Lord of the Rings, but mutual combat. I don't think I've really played the Lord of the Rings game, but possibly. LOR. Okay, Legends of Runeterra. There was an old. That would be LOTR, I guess. Yeah, there was an old Lord of the Rings card game, but I guess you're talking Legends of Runeterra. Yeah, so Legends of Runeterra, it is that simultaneous turn where you're going back and forth, but you have an active and an inactive player. So we're definitely a good bit different from that. You also, if I'm remembering correctly, in Legends of Runeterra, you have a single combat where you just click attack and everything kind of goes in. With this game, you've got more individualized combat, similar to a Force of Will or something like that, where I'm going to select a single unit, I'm going to attack a thing. You can defend or not defend, and it's always a one-on-one fight in your individual combat actions. Okay, so I guess we'll kind of interchangeable combat main. Yes. It's not even really a main phase. It's just I took an action that was combat, so I attacked. And then after that action, my opponent now gets an action, and their action could be play a resource, or could be, activate an ability, or whatever. They're just, it's interchangeable, but there's not really a main phase, because we're just, one person is always doing a thing at any point in time. Okay, so we've got, I think we already talked about it, we've got 17 water cards plus a shrine here to talk about. And I think maybe it's worth it to start talking about the shrine. Let's look at the shrine first. Yeah, thanks. That's a good idea. Okay, so this is the Unseen City. The idea with this one is that you're weighing in on the water units and the water tribe's sort of stealth mechanic. Stealth is a mechanic that's on some units that basically
comes as a value where a unit might have stealth 1 or stealth 2 or stealth 3 or whatever. And the idea is that if a unit has stealth, an opposing unit has to also have that much stealth to defend against it. Otherwise, they could just kind of sneak by, without being seen. So, you guys have played against this shrine in the past. What do we think of this one, the way it kind of stands right now?
I have not played against this shrine exclusively in set 1.
Okay, not exclusively set 1, sure.
But I think it's pretty strong. I think it's in a good spot. I don't think it's necessarily too broken or too weak.
Okay.
I like it because you get there's a lot of design play around for this specific card, this specific shrine where some of y'all haven't seen a whole lot of the future cards or cards that are currently in the set. I don't know if anyone's gotten that much time to look over all the set 1 cards. But yeah, there's a lot of play design around it, and like that 1 damage, it like adds up a lot on a lot of certain units, and it really helps push the board advantage for water if played correctly. And, a misplace, and it really rewards players on like deciding where that 1 damage needs to go and help you either push for lethal or get rid of that sticky minion that's been in your way for like 4 turns and get through and start chipping away at the shrine if you don't exactly have your health units out.
I like the shrine a lot because if you decide to like really go like full send on that ability, it's good, but it's also just good like in any other deck.
Yeah,
it's just a nice thing to just have occasionally.
We've seen another friend of ours was actually in town. I was playing some live games where we were testing like future league stuff with some of the sets to come. And I had a deck that didn't have a strong like reason to play one shrine or another. And he literally just, and this is going to be a little bit of a spoiler here, a card that you guys will not get to see tonight, sadly, but he was like, why don't you just play Unseen City and run the Frozen Mistress Essence of Stealth combo? Like, just put it in there as literally the only stealth unit, and it's just worth it. It's just, like, that strong because you get that free damage, like, gets you so much benefit off of that card in particular. And it's little openings like that I think they're really interesting in the design, and kind of what AJ was saying, how it's like, 1 damage on some units matters a lot, and for a lot of the new people, damage is permanent. So if a guy takes a damage, that's you track it with counters, very similar to like a game like a Pokemon or something like that. Your damage is constantly tracked on the units. So like a random guy that took a damage is now more susceptible to having to trade down, right? Like your 4-drop took a damage, now my 2-drop can kill it, you know. So like stuff like that happens pretty consistently.
Yeah, this shrine has quite a bit of value, but I think something players may get hung up on when they're looking at shrines. They might try to like dedicate a deck and build around the shrine, which is fine. But like, they shouldn't be opposed to ideas of just like having like 1 or 2 cards that play really well with the shrine.
Yeah,
because it's super possible and like it's viable.
Yeah, I've personally built decks that like 5 to 8 cards are the only things that really trigger with the shrine. But like those 5 to 8 cards with that extra like ability on there, like help push my win con and help me win games. So like you don't exactly have to devote entire decks to this shrine, but like sometimes it's just like another like good small value engine over there that you're just like, you know what, I'll run like 9 stealth cards in my 50 card deck and move on from there,
which is preferable anyway because you want to have stealth answers.
And you don't want to be all stealth either, as we'll see as we start getting into some of these cards, because honestly I think that a lot of the stealth units are kind of middling as far as like their board presence goes. So like if your entire deck is just jamming stealth units, like you're not going to have great opportunities for like, you know, fighting and defending and winning combats and stuff. You're just going to be, well, I'm going to go all face and like hopefully this works. Okay, so with that in mind, kind of keeping this kind of in the back of your head, if you're playing water inside of set 1, there's a really good chance that this is the shrine that you'll be playing with. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and jump in. I do want to look at pretty much all of these cards. Starting off with Careful Sneak, this is one of Jake's favorites.
It's fantastic. You put Infused Fire on this bad boy. It's a fantastic early game card.
Yeah. Ruben says good shrine. And, you know, Jake just said something that we haven't really touched on yet, and I think it's probably worth noting. He said you put Infused Fire on this guy. So the absolute premier mechanic inside of Flawed Card Game is the fact that all of your cards are flawed and you have to...
Did I spoil this?
No, but by no means.
Just jumping out of order on things.
Yeah, I mean,
my bad.
We're learning. No, it's fine. I probably should have said this already. But all of your base cards are flawed, and they require some work on the player's part before the game to kind of customize them the way that you want it. And Careful Sneak is a prime example of a really good aggressive threat that's kind of missing a point of power, right? Like a one cost that only has 2 power is like a little bit below the curve as far as dealing damage. But because of the way the game works, there's a thing called Infused Fire Essence that will be, again, it's a clear overlay that will kind of go atop this card. You'll end up with like 2 cards in the sleeve together, kind of. And the Infused Fire Essence is going to increase this card's power by 1, and that's really potent on a guy with stealth, because remember, stealth is like kind of hard to defend against, so you can get some really quick aggressive damage in with a card like this. What do we think power level wise? Like, what do we think as far as compared to other 1-drops? I mean,
compared to other 1-drops, the stealth helps it keep up. I think it's not that strong, in all honesty.
Yeah,
like there are some really cracked 1-drops, but if obviously this is a 1/2/2/1, it'd be pretty weak. But the stealth does it keeps it like relatively competitive.
Mm-hmm.
I'd put it like an A tier card. It's very well balanced.
So I actually did some research into a lot of the 1-drops in Flawed, and I do, after coming back to it, I do think each 1-drop has very much their own merits.
Okay.
To each one, right? So like this one stat line is not better than like 2 or 3 of the other ones, but this one has stealth, where the other one's just like, I'm a overstated 1-drop. So each one of these 1-drops all push a certain like game plan, and this one I think does it very well for the stealth mechanic. I mean, playing a 1-drop on 1 that almost guarantees you at least like 2 to like 6, 8 damage in some matchups is impeccable, and something that you kind of want out of your 1-drop. I mean, with the 1 speed, it doesn't really like block that well, but I mean, starting off the game with theoretically a free 10 damage over like 4 or 5 turns against your enemy shrine is huge.
So something very valuable about these really low cost drops, that they can be like a threat. So like you attack with this and then it would be vulnerable, but like a lot of people don't want to waste an action or a card to deal with a 1-drop or something so weak. So they maybe they'll hesitate, or they'll just won't consider dealing with it in time, and it ends up costing them a lot in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, I've personally had games against Ken where my fire grunt has done 16, 18 damage.
Yeah, we played one just
because it's just not worth it.
Your grunt got in for 10, and I was just like, at the end of turn 5, I'm like, how have I not dealt with your 1-drop yet? Because like working up the curve, I mean, cards match up pretty well. Like a lot of the times I need to use my turn 2 to deal with your turn 2. I need to use my turn 3 to deal with your turn 3, whatever. And if I'm the one on the kind of the controlling strategy a little bit on the back foot, then just having even a decently statted, it doesn't have to be any of the like hyper aggressive 1-drops. Just having an okay 1-drop can do a lot of work. And this one kind of makes it a little bit easier, a little bit smoother, because like you're able to sneak those attacks in so much more effectively with the stealth, right? You're gonna go for the shrine, you're gonna get that damage, and now your opponent is put in the kind of the rock and a hard place where they're like, do I want to attack back into that? Because like another small mechanic, when a unit is exhausted rather, I should say, you can attack it directly, right? It's susceptible to counterattack, so to speak. So if I attack with my Careful Sneak and get my 3 damage in, or if it's 2 or 3, whatever essence I put on it, and your only real means of dealing with it is to attack back, then you have to actually make that attack. You have to send your guy in, and now your guy's exhausted. And now, what if I play something scarier? And it creates all these like kind of like situations that spiral out of control sometimes, when you just have to like stop and be like, okay, I have to do something about this 1-drop because it's just kind of going to town on me.
Yeah, 100%.
Cool. So yeah, I actually like this card a lot, like where it's at as far as like talking balance and that type of thing. I think this one's in a really good spot. We don't have to linger on all of them quite that much. I think this is an awesome one to kind of showcase like how some of the like power level and like curve considerations and things like that. This is a great card. This really kind of tells a big story.
I agree.
Yeah. But Churn, okay.
First event.
Some people, I don't know which font I chose up there, but some people read it as Chum. It is very much Churn. That was CHURN. This is kind of one of the marquee mechanics of Water, right? Water has the ability to pick their cards up from the resource zone and put them back in your hand,
which is very strong.
It can be really important as the game goes on. It becomes more important because as you're using cards in your hand as resources, keeping in mind, and I don't know how much of this I've mentioned before or how much it's tough to talk in the scope of people who are just showing up, joining in. But basically, when you're playing a game, you've got your opening hand of cards. You're going to charge one of those as a resource every turn, and that resource is a card otherwise, right? So in effect, like Churn here, that allows you to return a card from your resource zone to your hand. Lets you kind of, it's turn 1. I've got this heavy, like 7 cost, OP finisher in my hand. I'll play this down as a resource now, but later on I have the option to get it back. And that type of effect is pretty unique to water cards, and it's one of the ways that lets you kind of be a little more like a little more swingy with your deck design options, right? Like you can just put crazy cards in because it's like, well, if I have to resource this early, I can always get it back.
True. That is
it allows you to be freer with your resource drops early. Like you're like, oh man, I want this 8-drop because this 8-drop real good against my opponent, and it's like, well, I'll get it back. Let's go. Like we're like in other colors and essences, it's a lot harder. Where you're like, all right, if I play my 8-drop down, am I sure I not need it at all this game? Like,
and that's even a separate.
Am I gonna be sad?
That's even a separate topic outside of that, right? Like you hear us talking about, I'm playing like 7 and 8 drops in my deck. Like it's viable. Like competitive cards can cost a ton in this game because of the fact, number one, you're making a resource play every turn. Number two, the expensive cards are made to have an impact when they show up. And number three, it's more flexible, right? Like if I have an opening hand that contains my 7-cost card, I get to just play that as a resource. And like it doesn't like, in some other competitive card games, I've drawn my opening hand. Oh, my hand has 2 7-drops in it. I'm playing with half a hand. I've lost like 2 of my kind of pieces that I have to play with, right? Not the case. So being able to play those cards as resources and then to further that conversation with water, get them back, super powerful.
I will say, I think with a lot of new players, they're going to have trouble with resource management. I think water is a very forgiving color for that, and a lot of new players could gravitate towards water for that reason. Which
great thought.
Yeah, I think it's just. I'd honestly recommend water. Splashing some water in your deck when you're first starting to play might be worth it because
little pun action there. I like it.
Yeah.
See how many we can rack up.
That was intentional.
TDMCP said right at the start of the stream, he said you missed the opportunity to say we're taking a deep dive into water, which is exactly the idea here. But yeah, Churn is an effect that you'll see on a couple different cards. It's the card that does it in kind of isolation here is called Churn, but this line of text is on some other cards. It's actually on the main card that we're going to be talking about tonight whenever we get around to it.
Oh, yeah.
Another one, Conjure Barrier, defensive
Never
card.
used it, but it's strong. Should we talk about prepping?
We can try.
I feel like this card's context, like, it's sort of important to that.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It really is.
Well, I guess we should probably talk about passing as well.
I figured, Travis. I didn't know if you wanted me like spouting your name. I knew who you were, but that's fine. So one of the things we talked about earlier was the fact that both players are taking actions back and forth. There's a tension inside of every turn within a Flawed game where the first player who has done all the things they want to do, okay, they played a resource, they played out their unit for the turn, they activated the ability on their thing, they've done all the things that they want to do in a given turn. They're going to take an action called Prepare. And what happens when you prepare is you automatically draw a card. So one of the important things about this game is that on average, players are drawing 1.5 cards per turn. So you're getting to see a lot of your deck, you're getting a lot of options, you're getting to play the game all the time. There's always really high action-packed turns, pretty much constantly. But once you've prepared and you've drawn that extra card, for the rest of the turn, you're locked into passing. All you can do is pass your action, so your opponent kind of just gets to go like action, like in a row, and like finish out their turn. Now, sometimes that hurts because they can do something really cool. Maybe they put together some soft combo or create some, they play like a bunch of guys out and they have like a really good attack on you or whatever it happens to be. Sometimes you get punished for that. But the upside is you get to draw a card immediately. And then, obviously if you prepare a number of turns in a row, you're going to have a huge like card advantage, over your opponent.
And now, should we explain that your actions must be passed once you prep, but you can still respond to your opponent's actions.
So even after you've prepared and you are locked into permanently passing, you still have the ability to respond to your opponent's actions. You can defend with your units. You can play, in this case, events that have higher than 0 speed. You can activate abilities that have higher than 0 speed. There's a bunch of stuff that you can still do during your opponent's actions, but it's all according to like what options they're giving you, right? Like if their action is combat, more than likely you're going to be able to defend. Sometimes you'll be able to play a removal spell, whatever. But Conjure Barrier here is a great example where, okay, I've finished my turn, I've prepared, I'm playing defense. My opponent starts attacking me with their horde of monsters, and I can just play Conjure Barrier. Boom, my shrine doesn't take any damage the rest of the turn. I'm already stuck passing all my future actions, so I just get this effect kind of for free. Without any significant disadvantage, I would say. Really cool card. I actually like this one a lot. I play it in quite a few decks, actually. Like, if I'm playing a controlling strategy, I like to have this as kind of a catch-all.
Yeah, I agree. Guess we can move on.
Sure.
It's a good card.
No love for Conjure Barrier, but yeah, I'm a big fan of that one.
This guy is good. He's good.
Yeah.
He's pretty good. I just never really played him.
Sure.
He's actually good in the full stealth deck. When your guy's really vulnerable because they're all exhausted,
Yeah.
that bottom ability is kind of insane.
Yeah, and this is a great time to talk about what's called Waterbound. So this is an ability on some of the cards where if the essence that is bound to this card... Jalen just asked, will we see gameplay tonight? I've never played Flawed and want to see how the game is played. Jalen, I love that that's where your head's at. I am so close to having the materials ready for release in the Learn to Play video. There's a couple of things I have to finish tweaking. So sadly, not tonight, but it's coming very, very, very soon.
I think he wants a refund now.
Yeah. But yeah, Waterbound is an ability that is basically it's... TTS isn't public yet. Yeah, my TTS is not public yet. That's correct.
It can't be.
I actually had really unofficial placeholder artwork on all of the cards early on in testing, and have to go through and like change all those. These are free to use icons that I've got on the cards now. So once that's all updated and I do all the photoshopping and stuff, that's one of the big, like, I'm almost done with it, and we'll have at least some starter decks ready for people to kind of look at and get into.
Excited. I'm gonna be just getting my ego up so high.
Yeah, I was talking to...
Don't worry, everyone. I'm going to help build the starter deck so Ken doesn't make one too powerful and just start slapping people around.
No, I would never.
We'll have two
I can't
decks.
make my custom deck.
Not right away. The full card database is not going to be available right away. Partially because it's so much work to update.
True, but that raises a question, if you don't mind. So once you have like set one being play testable, if that's a word, am I able to make set one decks or?
Yeah, so the goal right now is going to be to get everything in set one fully updated with the correct artwork on both the cards and the essences. That's actually been one of the issues, is I kind of poorly created the essences the first time around, so putting the new artwork on them, the free artwork, is a huge pain because I didn't save the files as I did it, so I have to basically recreate 80 essences.
Oof.
Yeah. I just saved the final, I saved the final version instead of saving the individual, I did it on all the base cards. All the base cards have individual files, right? The essences I didn't do it on. It was definitely a lack of foresight on my part, but you will be seeing updates in the Discord and on the Patreon and that type of thing. Like, as I'm getting that project finished up, it's my number one goal right now is to get people playing the game. I want to have, at least the people who are inside this Discord getting some samples. Back to Covert Commander, Waterbound, great example. This is an ability that is active so long as the essence bound to this guy is some type of water essence. So it could be a basic water, infused water. It could be a dual land that has water included on it. And by dual land, I mean like a multicolored essence. It can be a water essence that adds abilities, adds text. There are a lot of options. You guys will get to see these pretty soon. They're going to start getting posted real soon, some of the essence options. But the idea here is that this guy, he's really dedicated to the craft of stealthy water tactics. So if his essence is water, he's really good at his job and protects your whole team.
Pretty much, to break that down as simple as possible, if your essence can produce water, he has water bound.
Exactly.
True. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Disbelief.
This card. Do you remember when Nick ruined my life with this card?
He hit your alpha with it, right?
It didn't matter what card I picked because it was gonna hit for like 3 damage. but I picked the epic one for no reason, and it cost me.
Was asked in general to read. Okay, I can't actually see general chat. Let me get.
Kathy
Yeah,
said
we can do that. Yeah, that's fine. Sticker will making the suggestion. All right, Disbelief. This is an event. It's got 2 printed speed. Its cost is water, water, water. And it very simply says, put target epic card on the bottom of its owner's deck. So,
What's an epic card, Kenny?
yeah, that's a good question. That's a real good question. I can't. What are some examples of epic cards? Like, are there even any good ones?
I don't know. I think
Griffin.
there is okay.
So there's this guy called Rawl. This is a.
Oh,
Is
I
Rawl
thought we were
set
going to
one?
spoil set 2 things. No. Let's stick with set 1 epics. They'll get to know about Rawl eventually.
Yeah. Rawl's future league stuff, but
Yeah.
basically the epics are the main characters in the story. There is going to be a really robust kind of like tale that you can follow through these different characters and like the faces they even yes, as he reads the hate card. Travis says, are there even any good ones? He asks as he reads the hate card for said type. Yeah, for a card like this to exist, which is clearly some really strong removal, right? Like send it to the bottom of the deck is a nasty way to get rid of something in any card game. For a card like this to exist, obviously the epics have to be pretty strong, and we're going to see one of them today. If I'm being honest, Taliyah's kind of fine. She's not quite as impressive
is
as...
set 2?
Thera's set 3.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah, but Taliyah is going to come up today, and we might get a chance to peek at a couple others, but the epics are really sweet. A lot of them are like build arounds. They've got like really cool combinations of abilities and stuff that like allow you to play them. You basically like choose them to be the core concept of your deck. It's very often that you say, I'm going to build an XYZ deck, and it's based on like these 2 epics, and that's kind of like your core strategy goes around them. Taliyah is an example, the one that you're going to see here in the water from set 1. She's actually kind of just a role player, I would say almost, but she's really good at it. She is insanely high statted. She's like really water focused, and she just really is a strong representative of water cards in general. But yeah, Disbelief, great card. Another important side note. So I heard something about lore. I love lore. Yeah, Jalen, lore. I have a bunch of small stories that I'm working on as far as the epic characters and the way they've interacted with each other, and the way that kind of the politics and all, everything works in the world where the game's taking place.
Dune who?
What was that?
I said Dune who.
Yeah, Dune who, I agree. Who's ever heard of spelling a word with the same letter 4 times? But no, there's a lot to it. I do have some work to do in that department, but within set 1, you've got some of the really the noteworthy characters you're going to be hearing about are Taliyah, Griffin the Fourth. You've got Elvira. She's really good. She's the Slayer Squad commander from the Fire Tribe. She's one of my favorite epics, if I'm being honest. She's just so sweet. Like, it's just such a strong card. She was actually featured on Patreon not too long ago, talking about her Anthem ability.
Nice.
Who else do we have? Let me think. You've got Thaddeus, Little Breeze. Who's the last one? Who am I missing? Dark. Avarisa Dark Art.
She's a set 1 Dark Epic?
She's a set 1 Dark Epic, yep. So you've got those, and then there's some really cool things that you can do with these epic characters, and I've already started to design like forward in some of the future sets where you have, like, for instance, Griffin the Fourth. In his story, he ends up kind of coming up against some opposition and kind of gets dethroned. He ultimately agrees to a challenge for the throne. He loses the one-on-one fight to Demiraz, who we had already talked about earlier, and Demiraz just kind of doesn't abide by their agreement and kind of like execute Order 66s and like kills all of the knights. It's this like massive assassination and just like really rough time for Griffin's character and his story arc. So the next card you see from Griffin, like, he's lost his king unit type. His abilities are more, sort of less aggressive, more about like, recruiting new knights and like getting his army back and getting his people back and like getting back in touch with the land and all that type of stuff. And you can see that story play out like in what the cards do. And it's really interesting to be able to develop these characters and like kind of put, change them over time.
True. Dressing up your Barbies is going to be the best part of deck building.
It really is.
True.
But one of the cool things that it lets me do is you get to create these epic units that are like really strong and really powerful. But since they are epic, they are limited to 1 per deck of a given name. So if I'm playing, in a format where both Griffins are a legal card, I've got to choose like which part of the story I'm representing, right? Am I playing the Griffin when he was like on top and he was, he was king and he was just an insanely powerful 6-drop, or am I playing the one that is, more of like a kind of like a card advantage engine that's a little bit less, you really get to make these big choices.
Yeah. And through very meticulous card design, they're all viable. Like it's not like, so if you have 2 Griffins, it's definitely not just one basic easy choice.
I agree. I think that if your deck wants a 6-drop like finisher, that the previous Griffin is really good. If your deck wants a card advantage engine, the new one's really good. You've got tons of space. It just depends on which direction you're trying to go.
Which is good. Yeah. I like. Next card. An item. Kenny, what are these?
Did I miss one? They do. Oh, okay. Travis says, in short, they do one thing very well, and you can base a deck around that thing. Yes and no. There are plenty of them that behave that way, where you've got a character whose abilities are going to, when you read the abilities, you're like, oh, I can already picture like the first 10 or 15 cards I'm going to put with this guy to like hone in on that strategy. Then there are some other ones like Taliyah that we're going to see in a couple minutes here that is more of a just like, this is a role player. This is a great card. The effect that she has is going in most of my decks. You know what I mean? And you end up where that's kind of a good thing, because now it's like, okay, I'm going to play like a soldier water deck, so I want to have Thera in there, which is an epic that is in the Future League right now. Because she interacts with soldiers and she's got a really good ability to like make my unit on unit combats like a lot better. So I'm going to play a board control deck with her, blah, blah, blah. But why wouldn't I also play Taliyah, who's just a great role player, good stats, good ability. So you should get to kind of mix and match. It's not like you're completely stuck.
All epics could theoretically be build-arounds, but at the same time, they can all just be like great supporters at the same time.
Yeah,
like,
100%.
Like no one epic's like, well, if I'm playing this epic, the other 49 cards, they have to like build around this person and make sure the deck's good. Like you can honestly like
you could genuinely build. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was gonna say you can generally build like a strategy, and you're like, man, I need some card. Like I got like 5 cards left, and you're like, oh, Griffin. Like my deck's not really built around like maximizing Griffin, but Griffin's just good as Griffin. Let me just put him in my deck and go to work. Oh, Little Breeze. Little Breeze just overall like a good like turn 4, turn 5, turn 6 play. Yeah, let me like he fits my colors. Let me put him in, help support. So there's also that idea that you can go around with epics as well. They don't have to be the full idea of your deck. They can be, because we've all built decks where they are like the main idea.
Yeah,
and like
absolutely.
Maximizing like the epics to its full potential is, can be done, and it's still a very good archetype and strategy to do. But you're not pigeonholed into it if you're like, well, if I want to play this epic, I have to do all these hoops to jump through.
Yeah,
right.
No, you could play a different strategy, and you're like, hey, I think I got room for a Griffin in my deck, and then just slap in Griffin and move on.
Yeah.
You could honestly play like the only thing that the cards in your deck have in common are their color. Like they really don't have to flow together. It helps, and it can be fun to deck construct like that, but like it's not necessarily necessary.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
That's great points on both sides. Just talking about like, I think Griffin's one of the premier examples actually. Like the Griffin from set 1 is the type of card where it's like, oh, I've built my deck. I ended up with a little bit of ramp in my deck. I'm playing heavy enough earth that like this guy makes sense to have in there. Why wouldn't I play him? Like you're not going to give me like a good reason to like not put like this pretty strong 6-drop in my deck, right? To Jalen's question, who just says there are epic items. Here's an example of an epic item. There are actually epics of pretty much all the card types already kind of either designed or, in the works of being designed in the future somewhere.
In the future.
This card is new. It hasn't been tested yet.
This card's very new. Yeah, this one is kind of on the not the chopping block, but this is not necessarily going to be a final version of this card at all.
Right now, yes, it is quite strong.
It is good, but it is an item. It does cost 3. I mean, you have to put it on the right unit, whatever. But it's a really good layer of protection, right? The ready for the nerf bat. Yeah, Travis, there have been so many cards that have been nerfed so many different freaking ways already.
Oh, yeah.
It's a really crazy playtesting experience when my set 1 format is like 5,500 cards. So, and I say that to mean when you take all the base cards and multiply it by all the legal essence combinations, just a one set like on release format is going to be like over 5,000 cards. So it's really crazy to see the things that people cook up. I mean, we've had a number of individual times where I just, just either Jake or Ruben or somebody shows up with a deck or a card even, and the essence that they put on it and the way they're using it, I'm just like, I never even thought of that. I never even dreamed that that's what was going to happen. And I'm so happy that you found it. There's a ton of space for like kind of designing and creating your own little mini combos and making them work together. So it's really, really fun like that. Just getting to see what people come up with. One of the most rewarding things is when I am completely blindsided by a strategy, a combination, a card with an essence that somebody plays on me and I get wrecked by it. I'm just like, nicely done.
No, yeah, it's going to be an amazing metagame.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty wild. But yeah, this card is it's an epic item. The idea here is that this mask is sort of the type of thing to like hide royalty's face so that you don't know who they are. And then if you try to kill them, you might accidentally kill somebody else, and that's why they can kind of like destroy off one of their other humans to protect the primary person who's got the masks on. And one of the things I just want to mention real quick, this is another one of the prominent families or prominent names that you'll see in some of the lore. The Unseen City is currently under Demark control. So the current ruling, body is this family name. And this is kind of one of the strategies that they use to protect themselves is, a lot of them wear these masks that you can't really tell, who's who. So yeah, pushing into the set. Oh, the best card.
The best card in set 1. Yeah.
Premium.
It's really good.
And into the removal, more of the removal package for water.
Yeah.
This card is fantastic.
This card is fantastic. There's not a ton to be said about it.
It's just good.
It's got a lot of options for what essence you can put on it. Most of the times people are increasing its speed with an essence of some variety. There are different ways to go about that, different color combinations. There's a lot of different things you can do with this. But basically, Drown, cost 3, says destroy target unit with power less than this card's speed. You can target epic units for this. This is any unit can be drowned.
Yeah, unit isn't specific to non-epic units.
Yeah, unit is.
I also would say that, right?
Yeah, unit is like a large classification that would include epic and otherwise. Yeah, good question.
Do we have anything like that says non-epic units?
I'm not sure. I don't think so. That doesn't.
Not at the moment, but I can see something being down the line.
Yeah.
Where it's specific non-epic.
There are definitely a handful of cards that specifically reference epic units, like Kano from set 3 and Assassinate.
Or
and stuff
literally
like that.
Disbelief.
Disbelief we just saw. Yeah, there are definitely cards that reference epic units specifically, but I don't know if there are any that say non-epic.
Not yet, but possibly.
Yeah, super sweet removal spell. Pretty actively used.
Bad.
Yeah. So this is a guy. This embedded operative. It's a 4 cost, 3 HP, 3 power, 2 speed, stealth 2. This was always meant to just be kind of a role player. Yeah. Travis says, but stealth 2 though. Honestly, awesome that you noticed that because I think that there are like a total of like 3 or 4 cards that are stealth 2, like total.
Yes.
So this thing almost just reads like undefendable. You cannot stop his attacks.
And when you read it like that, I wonder if that's good.
It's better. My problem with this guy and the reason that I've kind of fallen out of favor with him is doesn't have good space for very strong essences. He costs 4. Like
he is costing a lot.
I
think he might just be lacking a stat point.
Yeah, the stat line is so meager. This is definitely a card that's kind of on the chopping block. There are actually a couple of stealth units in this in this set 1 water package. AJ and I were talking about this a little bit before we got on stream. I think that water is missing some like mid-range, just meaty random guys, just units that you can just play, right? Everything is so specialized that I think they're kind of missing just that little bit of middle of the road like coverage.
Yeah, absolutely.
This guy could become it.
Why I dislike this card is because if we go back to our first card, our 1-drop that's a 2/2/1 with stealth 1. We added 3 mana for an additional stealth and then +1/+1/+1 on the stat line. Yeah, and to me,
that's gross.
To me, it's 100% not worth the 3 extra mana. But just know there's always testing being done. Like Ken said, I'm currently in the works of building mono blue decks to test out all this stealth stuff. So just know, like, what you see today might not be Ken's idea for a card in a week.
Time to buff
Yeah,
before
time to
release.
buff
Yeah,
before
I mean,
release.
changing.
there's a good chance that this
Exactly.
card doesn't even get buffed, but actually just gets like bounced out because there, as we finish up the water set or the water cards in this set, you're gonna see that there are just like so many random stealth idiots that are just like, here's a guy, he's got like some stats and he's got stealth, and it just happens over and over and over again. Stealth 5, Jesus.
Yeah, I mean the goal is to like once it's released, you don't want to make a lot of buffs and nerfs.
No,
You
once,
want it to be close to balanced.
when the cards are printed, there will not be buffs and nerfs. That's not a thing.
That's a good point. Yeah, I didn't even think of that.
That's not bad.
It would, but I'm gonna let you know that there's certain other cards that would be busted.
It wouldn't have that stealth value when it enters play. But
This card is plenty good.
So Travis says if the shrine dealt damage equal to the unit's stealth value, then the stealth 2 unit suddenly has a little bit more of a use because him in conjunction with the shrine would have an enters effect to deal 2 damage. Excuse me, I went too far.
Oh yeah,
What have I done? Oh, my
that'd be
Oh,
interesting.
no.
Sorry
What
guys.
is, what is happening?
This guy.
There
Sorry.
we go. There we go. We made it back.
That'd be
His,
very interesting.
his enters
Or it's
effect would
Ken's
be a
first
little
time
more
on a
interesting.
computer.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I just clicked the wrong button. That's hey, that I'm gonna put a pin in that. That's like definitely something worth thinking about. I don't know if it ends up pushing that shrine a little far. But like we did
Like
mention,
you said, there's only 4 cards.
there are
to
not
stealth through.
there are not that many cards that have higher stealth. so-
Clandestine gets. Never mind. I'm gonna shut up.
It's all right. It's all right. I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking of a different card, but I was thinking
that
of the
becomes really gross.
Yeah.
Okay, this is I actually skipped one, but this is
Frozen
the next.
Mistress with
Sorry.
that essence gets worse. So.
It's the same. It's still.
Oh no!
s-
Never
same.
mind. Never mind. For a second, I
It's the
thought
same,
she
yeah.
had
It's the same.
stealth.
It's okay.
No.
It's okay.
It's the
We'll
same.
just move on to Expert Saboteur. For 1 blue with Stealth 1, this unit may only attack structures as 2 HP, 5 power, and 2 speed.
Balanced. It's good. Like where it is.
Yeah, this card is like a burn card through and through. Like the idea here is if you
Yeah.
play this thing, get 1 attack in for
That's 5
5,
damage.
and then they kill it.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, I just played a 3 cost like deal 5, which is
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah.
And like this card is not like overpowered either. Like
No.
Ken and I were recently playing games like 3 days ago where he had this card in his deck, and like I took 10 damage from it, but like in
Didn't
the end,
lose.
like he was just
Yeah.
too far behind on board
Yeah.
state already that like it was kind of irrelevant. So like this card like is very good for what it's trying to do, just like punch you right in the shrine, but
Awesome.
it's not like just automatically game ending. So
Jalen's got a good question that we've dodged the entire stream so far. He said, I'm very new, but what is the 4 on the right next to HP? He's talking about this one over here, and that is a number called the card construction cost. And the real point of this number, and I will admit my original design, putting the number in the middle with the other stats, is a mistake. It will not be here on release. It's going to be moved somewhere. It's going to be altered in some way. But the point is that the card construction cost is the value that tells you how much space there is for putting essences on this card, okay? Every essence will also have a card construction cost. They'll say like +0, +2, +5, whatever. And the idea being that whatever you're going to add to this card, it has to total 6 or less. So a 4 really doesn't give Expert Saboteur a ton of options. There are, 15 or 20 legal essences that can go on a 4. But like half of those you might not necessarily use on an Expert Saboteur. A couple of them are going to not really give you stats that you care about on this type of card. So it kind of narrows it down. The big point being 4 doesn't give you a ton of options. When you start pushing this number down to a 3 or a 2, you start getting, 50, 60, 70 possible combinations that go on this one card. And at that point, many, many more of them are viable, depending on what type of deck you're trying to build. Yeah, Travis says I don't understand it all, but that may just be because we haven't seen any essences. Give me a second. Let me see if I can pull one up without artwork.
yeah, just to break down, it just makes things so you can't put like a super like an OP essence on just like your card. It's just really good game balancing.
Yeah,
But once you get to start playing, Travis, you'll quickly understand the idea behind why the numbers are over there that they are.
Yeah.
Like,
Once you
there's
see
a
the
lot that goes
cards and
into
you
it.
hold them, it's like, oh, I get it.
Yeah, it's hard. It's like you said, it is hard to understand without the essences. But once Ken gets all that up online and you start seeing like, oh yeah, if that was a 1 CC, like
yeah.
this would be a busted combination, and it would just be so good. So as of it looks right now, it's kind of confusing.
Whoops.
and it is kind of hard to
Oh,
understand without
there you go. You just ruined
showing
everything.
it side by side. But
You have to blur that out in the VOD.
No,
yeah,
I know.
but,
I didn't mean for that to pop up, but it's fine. It was just for a
but
second.
once you start getting cards in hand, you'll
There we
understand
go.
very quickly.
So here's an example. This is actually my essence building template inside of Photoshop, and the idea here is, the essence kind of has all these
Not
fields.
a real essence, by the way.
Yeah, this is not a real essence. Don't.
Not a real essence, by the way. Not a real essence, by the way.
Speed is broken.
Side note. But the idea here is I can modify these values in here. So this number right here plus this number right here. So in this case, 5 plus 4 would be an illegal card, right? Because that adds up to greater than 6. So if this were a real essence, which it isn't, it does, in this case, it adds a point of HP. It adds a point of power. It adds a point of speed. It gives the card the ability to produce one of these given resources. Normally, you would just have one type down here. Sometimes you have two. And then there might be other like rules text that is added to the card based on which zone it's active in. And the idea, like I said, there are 80 of these going to be released with the first set. And you get to kind of pick and customize, like make that layering decision where, okay, I'm going to take an essence and put it on top of this card and it's going to modify his power. Or I'm going to give him an ability called evasion. 6 is an interesting number because of the things that it's kind of like divisible by, but really what it came down to was flavor. Since there are like 6 nations, I just wanted to kind of like represent that number again. Was really the final decision. It could have been something else, but with 6, it gives you a lot of space. Like 2s, 3s, and 4s all make a lot of sense, but then you also have room to kind of put things in between. There are cards that have 5 right here. And like there are a couple of essences that are only +1s, but like that allows you to kind of make like subcategories of cards that like kind of get stuck with each other a little bit. So it gives you enough play without being just like crazy. Why events had a 0? Yeah, some events do have a 0 here.
Some events do have 0. Some
events have 6.
As we
Some
get
have
through
6,
all
yeah.
the nations, yeah, you'll see. It's hard to.
Which really helps with balance
why,
reasons.
But just know that there are some essences in fire that give like a good bit of extra attack, and putting that on this is just like, yeah, I'm gonna end the game in like 3-4 turns. With
We
this
could go
card
over
by
the
itself.
infuse to give an idea.
Yeah, I just don't really have them available.
Is it too difficult to explain without a picture?
It's fine. The learn to play is definitely gonna like hit
The
on
learn
it
to
a
play is
lot,
going to
so-
answer so much of this, yeah, but
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, next stream things. Yeah, the learn to play is probably going to. I don't want to guarantee this, but my goal is to have the learn to play up before we stream again. So in a weekish time, I really want to have that available. Or
I
less.
will do my best, Discord, to
Yeah.
help keep Ken straightforward. But there's also a chance that Ken's going on vacation next week, so things might go wrong.
It's early next week. Don't worry about it. Assuming everything lines up, Travis is asking how often will streams be. I plan on doing streams like this at least 4 times a month. I don't want to say it's going to always be like a Thursday night thing or whatever, or even exactly
Cannot
weekly.
wait for the last week having 3 streams.
Yeah, but I definitely want to do about 4 a month where I'm getting in here, turning the knobs, like talking this stuff over and just giving everybody kind of a peek at what's going on. But yeah, Expert Saboteur, another stealth guy. Icy Skin, I think we kind of looked at this one for a moment.
Underplayed and really strong.
Yeah, so this is a continuous event. This is a card type that is kind of 2 card types in one, but events are things that you play, usually to interact with the board in some way and kind of mess things up.
So
And-
let me. I'm sorry.
Go ahead,
Finish
go
your thought. And then,
No, yeah,
okay.
okay.
So I think. Wait.
No, you go. It's your turn. Go
Okay.
ahead.
How do you tell a man to finish his thought and then immediately start talking?
Because then he said,
Like, that's
all
all I
right.
want to know.
Because he
Finish
gave
your
me the
thought. So
go-ahead.
anyways, I was thinking.
I'm gonna ask.
You got to go ahead. Go for it.
All right. So I think something that confuses a lot of new players is the speed when it comes to continuous events and items.
Okay.
So items cannot be played during your opponent's actions. Events can.
Correct.
Continuous events can be played during your opponent's
Yeah.
actions.
That's a really important thing, and I think I pulled the. Let me see if I can get it up again. So this is a really important thing right here. The types of actions your opponent takes are going to have an intrinsic speed to them. So, for instance, if I take the action play a card, and my card is an Expert Saboteur that we just saw, when Expert Saboteur is on the stack, like waiting to resolve, this card's speed is a 2. So if you want to respond to a guy jumping into combat with speed 2, you have to have either an activated ability or an event that is at least a 2 or higher to respond, right? So everything happens in like a really like kind of like a real time scenario where like the plays that I make, have a rate to them. They're showing up at with purpose. And as Jake was just saying, this is an event, which means it meets the criteria to be a quote unquote response, right? The trick is it's only one speed. So what is it responding to? Well, a lot of times it's responding to combat, for instance, right? Combat has a 0 speed stack because combat is like, I'm just attacking. There's not really a card associated with it. I've just said that I'm going to attack. So a card like Icy Skin is very commonly played at this bottom line right here, which is a priority sequence that happens before damage is actually dealt. And I just slap this on one of my guys, and all of a sudden my guy's not taking damage, right? And since it's continuous, it stays in play. And now that guy doesn't take damage.
I think I made that point because like someone might think, what's the difference between a continuous event and an item? Because like items are so fast, everyone wants to just like, oh well, here's this lightning quick ability.
Yeah, and we saw that on the Demark Heirloom. It was 5 speed, and one of the design choice there, the reason that items are so fast is so that your opponent cannot respond to them. The idea being that at least your item makes it into play so that it will do what it's supposed to do. I think it's one of the real big shortcomings in some other games where you have, cards you can add on to other cards. A lot of times your opponent can just say, oh, kill your guy in response, and the card that you were going to add on never did anything, right? So by making items really fast, you get it so that your combination of cards is always going to at least come together, and then whatever your opponent has to do to answer that combination, they will, you know what I mean? Like the Demark Heirloom, for instance, now my guy literally can prevent death once a turn, right? So I'm gonna make you figure out how to answer that problem.
Which is a fantastic problem to have.
Invasion Tactics.
Oh my god, this card, dude. I cannot believe I haven't made a deck for it yet. It's so fun. Fun cards. I'm a big fan of fun cards.
Yeah. So this card is part of the reason why there are just so many random stealth guys in this first set, is because the idea that maybe you could just build a deck full of random stealth guys and go to town, just attack and have extra power and do damage.
Even stealth one is just like, oh, here's just passive. Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Yeah. I think this card's sweet. Not a lot to change here. Taliyah, here's the Wave Shaper herself.
There she is.
So
is very strong.
Another cool line of
what
text
does
to talk
waterlocked
about.
mean?
Yeah, waterlocked. We already saw waterbound, which means if the essence is water, you get additional text. Waterlocked is kind of the opposite. The essence must be water. So whatever I'm putting on her, it has to produce water of some variety. There are plenty of other options. I mean, there are plenty of options within water.
God, she's 3 printed speed.
Yeah, she's really strong.
Yes.
What the fuck? Well, then again, she can't get stat points.
She can't get stat points because basically no water essence gives stat points. So yeah, you see how there's even balancing within those types of things.
I think the most you can give her is an extra HP or an extra power, even speed, but just one of the duels.
Yeah, you can make her cost 5 and add a stat point, or your only options, and
not worth.
In most of those cases, you're sticking her with a stat point and evasion 1 to turn her into a 5 cost, which is pretty rough, honestly. She's usually just much better with a run-of-the-mill water essence of some variety. But yeah, nice strong stat line, really strong if I'm being honest for this cost. And she comes with a churn effect. She just shows up and automatically churns. So there's just a little bit more of the water tribe, getting access to the resource zone. Great role player, really strong card. Nothing wrong with this one.
And once again, this is one of those epics that we were hitting on earlier,
stinky,
where you don't have to completely build around her, but she is just overall great support card.
I put her in every single deck that has any water.
Yep.
Yeah, Tilly is really strong.
Turn on a good statted body feels real good a lot.
So as a bounce deck main,
Trevor says this is a good card.
Let's talk about this card and how it's been smacking me around for 2 weeks, a week now.
Sleeping on it so hard.
So this is actually the second or third iteration of this card, and it got patched, I don't know, months ago, and then ignored. Nobody saw it. And just recently we've started to really, really, really focus in and kind of we've been doing a lot of future league testing where there are obviously a lot more card options, so on and so forth. But recently we've been focusing much more aggressively on just set 1 to really kind of try to put a final stamp on it. And
I've been slamming set 1 decks against each other for
weeks at this point.
I don't know, maybe 60 hours total in the past week.
Yeah, we've been
really
hard at it.
Narrow down on this, yeah.
But this card has absolutely risen to the top, and Travis, it's true. When you look at it, it's just oh, this card is just
good.
Just draw a card and get a card of your choice out of your resource zone every turn, which is clearly strong. But there's some nuance here that is kind of hard to understand. Number one, it's a continuous event, and inside of all of set 1, there are only 4 ways to interact with continuous events at all. 2 of which are counterspells, 2 of which are like destruction effects. As you go deeper into more sets, Cam says, I have heard literally 0 of what's going on. Well,
he's at work.
Cam knows this card. We've talked about it with him a couple times, so I mean, he at least knows what we're looking at. But I see the best card in the set is on the screen. Yeah. Yep. So there are not a ton of ways to interact with this. Even compounding that problem is one of the cards that actually interacts with continuous events sends them to the resource zone. So if I get a turn of Tides in play and you play Bury Magic on us, yeah, at absolute worst, it's draw an extra card every turn. Exactly. Even if the card you pick up from the resource zone is a dud and you just put it straight back down, you're drawing 1 off the top every turn. Exactly. It does take an action. It's a 0 speed activated ability, so I have to play that on my action every time. And you will learn as you start to play the game that action economy is really important. If I'm doing a lot of small things on my turn and my opponent is taking their turn to the fullest and not skimping out on anything and then preparing and drawing a card anyway, then this card is only catching me up. It's not pulling me ahead, right? Does ramp exist in set 1? Yeah, there's a bit. There's I'm trying to think. I think there are.
We got a few, and there's a few cards that ramp themselves.
There's an essence that just gives ramp kind of to a card.
Yeah.
But that's Earth
like
specific.
Death ramp.
Yeah. Ramp does exist, but it's not as plentiful as you might think. Ramp actually picks up quite a bit in the second set, I would say.
Yep. It does exist, and I'm going to be honest with you. Ken's playing a deck that has maybe 4, 5, 6 cards, maybe at most that ramps.
I have 3.
And
I have
3.
3.
Yeah. No, it's 4, isn't it?
All I have is the
3 plus the epic.
Oh, I am playing Griffin. That's true. Okay. Yeah. I'm playing. Yeah. It's 4. You're right.
Yeah. So he's barely ramping into it, and this is just like a super good like control finisher. But the main problem that Ken and I have.
Spoilers on Griffin. Yeah.
True. I just said epic, and Ken gave it away.
So I'll go ahead and spoil what his actual ability is. Griffin, who is a fatty finisher, is part of the reason that this card is so insane, because his line of text says that when he's destroyed, he becomes a resource. So he gets destroyed, and I'm just like, okay, I'll turn the tides, pick him back up.
That's nuts.
Play him again next turn, and my finisher like doesn't go away.
Oh, who made this game?
It's a fair question.
Problem with this card is what we've seen so far is like in the control mirrors, this card is the end all be all in the control mirror. Like Ken has it, I don't have it in my deck.
Yeah.
Any
like,
ideas?
he pulls so far ahead and just like wins so far ahead in the control mirror, but we're currently testing out like how good is this card against pure aggro.
Right.
Like, and that's still in the testing. We're still working on that, but
which we're actually trying to solve what like one of the we're really trying to answer the question like what is the most aggressive deck you can possibly make inside of set 1, and that's what we've been tuning like right now to see if this card just dies, if the deck that contains this card just dies to going full ham.
And I've both been under the talks that like, okay, if this card beats other control decks because they're not playing it, that's fine. Like, you just got the better end game, and that happens a lot in the control mirrors. But, like, if this card is just single-handedly being aggro too, then this card is definitely going to get looked at.
Yeah, Travis says versus pure aggro, you just resource it and turn it back later, which is, like, pretty true. Like, if you get this thing in your opener, you're gonna resource it.
It's also, like, probably not your only turn effect.
Right,
yeah.
Right. The deck that I'm playing has Taliyah, it has Life Cycle Wardens, it has,
Life Cycle Wardens set 1.
But the idea is also that, like, if you are turning this back into your hand for control versus aggro, you're probably beating the aggro deck at that point anyways.
Playsets are 3. Travis just asked how many is a playset. Playsets are 3.
3, yeah. So that's the thing we're looking at. That, like, on average, if control is able to turn this back after resourcing it, the aggro deck probably already lost the game, and they're just, like, hanging on by a thread to try to, like, do something in it. And so that's, like, another thing that Ken and I've noticed in the testing, too, is, like, we've been keeping track of, like, how many times, like, is this card actually winning me the game? How many times is this card just, like, irrelevant, but it's been here,
Because against aggro, if you just get to the point where it's like, oh, I cast Life Cycle Warden, I pick up Turn the Tides, next turn I play Turn the Tides, I start activating it, and I'm pulling ahead of you, enter any 6-drop, right? It doesn't have to be Turn the Tides. Like if I've managed to stave off aggro to that point, then it's not really Turn the Tides that's the issue. It's more so my control deck was too good against the pure aggro deck, and that might be something worth looking at.
Or the pure aggro
This
deck.
card is really slow.
It is.
Yep.
I don't know.
Enter any card that draws cards. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you could literally just play any fatty, any card advantage engine in the late game against the aggro, and if it's gotten to that point, then the game's already over.
Yep.
So yeah, this is one we're going to definitely be looking at a lot going forward. You'll be looking on like Patreon, Insta, whatever. Like there will probably be some potential updates to this card specifically coming in the near future.
Was there Twitter for Flawed yet?
Say that again.
Is there Twitter for Flawed yet?
I didn't think I was going to do Twitter, but do you think I should?
I think Twitter's a big gamer base.
A big gamer base. Okay,
I think a lot of gamers are on Twitter.
Yeah.
A lot of cool cats.
Raise your hand in Discord if you're a big gamer on Twitter.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm big.
Twitter is more important than Insta. Okay. Heard.
I actually agree with that. 100%.
Apparently, we got to start a Twitter so I can start twitting.
It doesn't hurt to have all. Like I mean,
no, that's fair.
It's more of a reach.
I don't know what you said, but what you
this
said
fucking
was
card, dude.
So this card is really good. Yeah, family oriented.
I'm going to jail.
Yeah.
No, we're not doing TikToks here. Ken's too old for TikToks.
Make a TikTok.
Good. Okay.
I'll make a Flawed TikTok. I got it, Ken. I'll handle it.
All right. But anyways, let's move on to one of my favorite cards actually in Water right now.
So this is what Water needs a little more of.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like this guy's just got a perfectly reasonable stat line for 2 cost. He's got the option to activate like a nice little like kind of semi-untarget ability on him. If you choose to go with a water essence, but you don't have to. I've actually played this guy a lot of times with just like a fire essence or something, a light essence, like just something that kind of boosts his stats a little bit, whatever. A lot of options on this card, and I think that's where Water is kind of lacking right now. I think that their random bodies don't have a lot of options as far as just like here's a guy, put whatever essence on him you want, and he's going to perform in your deck. I think that's what they're missing.
Yeah, and some of you might be asking, why would I want to return this card to my hand? One, there's an essence in Water that can actually give your units stealth and can help trigger your shrine. So like it like helps like bounce back, put it back in your hand, play it again, deal another damage.
Mm-hmm.
Theoretically you can get another swing in if you swung already before it got bounced. So there's a lot of cool mechanics.
It also is like
cards getting returned to your hand.
It's also an automatic trigger, which is important to understand. Automatic triggers are literally automatic. If something triggers, it just happens. There's no stack. The stack is only in like during an action. That's some advanced rules that we'll get to at some point. For the next card stream, can we have the essences at the start so we can have a better grasp of the bound effects? Yes. That's a great idea. Hopefully I'll have enough of them up and ready by that point in time. Actually, just this morning found new artwork for the essences that is not stolen. I'll just use the word, not stolen.
I didn't realize the ones you have right now look
not Google images.
They're not for use. But I got some new icons. I'm gonna get them. Yeah, not borrowed. That's much cleaner. Gonna get those on there, and hopefully in a week-ish time I should have. We can take a more comprehensive look at essences plus cards.
Don't worry, Travis. I've been writing notes down of how we can do these streams better. They will get better. I promise you.
Yeah, this is the first run, guys. We're gonna develop from here. Hopefully, grow. Get a lot more community feedback. I'm so excited for people to start playing.
How many are there
just,
any? Is Flow Commando or Wave Rider in that one?
No. I think 2 and 3.
You see how we're in U,
okay,
Jake? We have
we would have passed Fs by now. Unseen Duelist. So this guy is one of the stealth guys that actually like matters because he's got a bunch of abilities. And this is actually something that I wanted to talk about. I've actually recently been doing a little bit of research on like some different pros and cons, like good things and bad things to do, ways to help your players, so on and so forth. And one of the things that I've radically neglected is help text. This card has no reminder text or help text on it, and it has 3 abilities. What do you guys think? I mean, is that like...
It becomes dirty.
Say it again?
Cards can get cluttered.
They do. I have actually a sample of one. I actually whipped this up.
I mean, Pokemon has a literal like pocket handbook for status effects.
Yeah,
They,
yeah.
like come with every single precon deck. So like,
So here's an example of what Careful Sneak could look like with reminder text. This is
Yeah.
a card we already looked at. Like, it's
this
not-
isn't bad here, but it gets very cluttered on cards that have stealth and other abilities.
True.
Then we start looking like Yu-Gi-Oh cards, you know.
No, I understand that. There's
Spoilers.
also yeah, we keep name dropping cards from like future league.
Yeah, you notice that 2 out of 3 people keep name dropping cards, and the other person just says epic unit or epic
It's like
card,
habit.
unit.
I can't even like stop myself from talking about all the cards. I'm sorry.
I know.
It's really hard.
But yeah, so this is something I definitely want to like look at, and I'll end up putting up some different like posts on like the Patreon, maybe get some feedback on what are the best ways to do this. Lower rarity cards. Yes, that's a good point, Travis. The typical is to keep the reminder text on the lower rarity cards because people will see them more often. And if Careful Sneak's a common, once you've read Stealth 100 times and all the Careful Sneaks that everybody plays, then by the time you open your Unseen Duelist, which might be a rare or whatever, you don't need to be reminded of what Stealth 1 is.
That's fair.
That's definitely an option. And I would say that, like, in this exact example, like, Unseen Duelist is almost certainly going to be a higher rarity than Careful Sneak. So, yeah, that's definitely a way to go with it. There's also,
this card is also fantastic.
Say it again?
This card is fantastic.
Oh, this card's great. This card's so great.
This card speaks a lot for, you know, y'all are just now seeing like these cards for like the first time and don't really understand too much, but some of these I guess mechanics or keywords on Unseen Duelists are big things in other colors.
Yeah.
So and you'll see more of that as we go through each one of these. You know, we're in water right now until we get to like light, air, earth, dark. Like you'll start to see like where the other colors like shine big on some of these keywords here. Like obviously, like so far in blue, we've seen the churn mechanic and stealth. So you know, as you're watching here, just you can be like, oh, okay, so like earth does this. You know, water's good here, like does that, and Unseen Duelist does, I think. Very good for a 2-drop here. You know, not a whole lot of power to, you know, really make it balance with the extra keywords and stuff it gets here. So with this being the very first stream, should say what they do.
What they do
the
the most.
abilities. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I was about to run down this one, or AJ, if you want to. I'm actually real excited. Go ahead and describe these 3 abilities.
So,
I'm excited to hear what you have to say. In particular, the last one. This is one that a lot of folks get hung up on, but go for it.
So Armor 1, it's pretty straightforward. It just reduces the damage that this card is taken by 1. So theoretically, if this card would take 2 damage, normally it would die because its HP is only 2. But Armor 1 reduces that 2 down to 1, and it will be alive at 1 damage. And your armor kind of like refreshes in between like each combat, like each time it like takes that damage. It's not like, oh, the Armor 1 got broken as the first action of the phase. Like this guy no longer has Armor 1. No, he has Armor 1. It's just each time they take. Yeah, so the Water Shrine theoretically cannot touch this card. It will.
Good point.
It'll try to ping it for the 1, and the armor will reduce it to 0, and it takes no damage.
We've actually had a pretty in-depth discussion recently about damage reduction and damage prevention, and like, it's a legal target, just not a very good one.
It's not a good one.
Great
Correct.
point.
Yeah,
exactly.
and then of course we got Stealth 1. We talked about Stealth, you know, 6-7 different times.
Yeah.
And then Swift Strike. Swift Strike's honestly one of my favorite
Wait,
mechanics.
Travis, what do you think Swift Strike does?
Interesting. Yeah, Travis, what do you think Swift Strike does?
Probably. Oh, he literally copied and pasted that.
Yes.
So, anyways, Swift Strike 1 for those of you who don't or
got the Google Drive open. I love it.
Google Drive
That's a
open.
genius.
Swift Strike's as easy as it is. If Ken is attacking with an Unseen Duelist at 3 speed, and I am blocking with a card with 2 speed, Ken's card is faster, so Swift Strike will actually add a damage to the Unseen Duelist and technically deal 2 damage to that unit that's defending. Now, Swift Strike does not work on things like structures and the shrines because
they're all real slow.
Yeah, you can't Swift Strike a building because like the building's not moving.
Yeah,
but you can definitely Swift Strike down other units if you are tied with it. So like if I'm blocking with a 3 speed and Ken has his Unseen Duelist at 3 speed, Swift Strike will not happen because we have the same speed. You have to beat them for your Swift Strike ability to be like activated in combat. So they can have 2 speed, 1 speed, 0 speed. You know, there's not many units with 0 speed printed, if at all. So as long as you beat it, outside of like structure, you know what I'm talking about, Ken. But
No,
Not
I was trying to
spoil
think if there
too much.
were any 0-speed units. There was for a minute, but I
Um,
don't think there are anymore.
Yeah, I don't think.
Oh
there
wait,
are
that's
any.
right. So
Yeah. So, So you have to beat it. You know, there's some cards that you'll see down the road that maybe have 4 speed, 5 speed with an essence on there, and like they have Swift Strike 2, and they're really hard to defend because they're just gonna get that extra free damage on your 1 speed guy. That's like, hi, I'm here to make sure the shrine doesn't take damage.
Yeah. That's
You know,
actually one of the key points is that Swift Strike is like one of the best like board control abilities because it makes you win the combats, right? Like it gives you
Yep.
that extra boost of damage when you're trying to like fight unit on unit and like keep the board under control and like have the advantage on board. One of the absolute premier 1-drops in the game is called Warcat, and you guys will see that. That's a set 2 card, but
Spoilers again.
that's fine. I don't mind. I don't mind dipping my toe in the future league a little bit. But Warcat's a 1 cost that has Swift Strike and like a pretty decent stat line otherwise. And that guy right there just like dominates the board on turn 1. He doesn't hit the shrine that hard because like Swift Strike doesn't apply to structures and stuff. But like when your opponent drops a Warcat on turn 1, you're just like, oh man, I'm gonna have a hard time like beating that thing with unit on unit combat, which brings up a whole separate conversation about metagaming and like the idea that like if you're playing against these board control decks that like leverage on Swift Strike and accuracy and these different abilities like this, well, those are the decks that your removal spells are going to be really good against, and it just kind of, you get into this whole like in and out conversation. We're nearly done with the water cards. This is one of the,
Here we go. One more.
I think this is the last one. There might be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll
2
watch it.
super.
That's right. Yeah, 2 more.
I've never seen him played.
Seen Zealot?
This-
Oh man, I like this guy.
This guy's
So-
good.
Yeah, I'll walk through them real fast. So we
Go
got
for it.
Unseen Zealot at 3 colorless, 3 of any color, blue. When this card enters play, you may return a water event from your dead zone to your
You know
hand.
what?
Additionally, whenever you play a water event, this card gains Stealth 1 until end of turn.
Dude,
And something that we haven't touched on that could possibly happen is Stealth actually stacks.
Yeah.
So you saw how earlier the one card had Stealth 2. Well, if you're able to give a card Stealth 1 twice, it now has Stealth 2 and can either theoretically block that or get through. Like if you push it to Stealth 2 and they only have Stealth 1s, now you're able to like swing freely through all their Stealth 1 dudes and hit their shrine.
Pretty much that rule, that little caveat applies to any of the abilities that have a numerical value associated with them. They stack. So if you have armor 1 and you gain armor 1, you now have armor 2, and you prevent 2 damage at a time. Swift Strike, it piles up. Like all of those abilities, anything that has a numerical value associated with it, individual instances of it, like stack up with each other. Which in this card's case, like AJ just said, I mean, you can pretty easily get this guy Stealth 1. And oftentimes, without too much work, you can give him Stealth 2 on a given turn. And it's, like Stealth 2 basically just reads undefendable. He's just getting in. And this guy's stat
sometimes
line
if
actually
you-
matters.
I've
I
lost
was
a few
sleeping on
games
that second
to this
ability.
guy.
Yeah. And the thing is, he's always going to get 1 activation, right? Because you're not playing him with an empty dead zone. You're definitely picking up a drown or something, right? A churn. Some kind of a card to
Honestly,
reuse.
if you'd asked me what Unseen Zealot did, I would have been like, oh yeah, he bounces an event back to your hand. I honestly didn't even realize he gained Stealth.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
that
He's
bottom
really
text
good.
matters. But yeah, this card has been kind of inside of set 1 testing. This has really been like reading the card explains the card.
Wins the card. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, dude. Hi, I'm Jake. You're gonna have a lot of fun.
I think at the very beginning of the stream I had mentioned that Jake didn't really come from a card gaming background, so he doesn't understand that very basic point.
Read the
Yeah,
card, explain the
art
card,
cool. Number big.
Yeah.
But regardless, like this guy, like he looks strong. He is strong, but he's not a card that's like pushing over the top because I mean, there's been plenty of games where Ken and I have had one in our hand and our dead zone has 0 water events, and we're like, well, either like at that point you're like, all right, am I playing a 4/4/2
right
with that could possibly get stealth in the future, or do I want to hold this and possibly get a water event back, which is just those key ends to like any card gaming, like any good card game is like, am I going for value or do I need the body to soak up or push damage? And this guy does a good bit of all of that. A good enters effect with a good sided body on a 5-drop. Like I really like the design of this card. This honestly is also one of my top favorite water cards.
Yeah,
and he does so much so well. So yeah, this guy's good. Not over the top, but a good turn 5 threat that has upsides.
This is one of those cards where like if you played Drown on turn 3 and like killed a decent guy with it, and then play him on turn 5 and pick that Drown back up, you feel like you're on top of the world. But then
I've seen it turn 8 where Ken's drowned a guy, played this, get his drown back, like all in the same turn. So this guy is past turn 5. This guy is, if you built your deck very correctly, this guy is live turn 5 forward and can be a real thorn in your opponent's side.
Absolutely.
At any point from 5 forward. So, yeah.
All right. I think we got the last card here. Wash Away.
Yeah.
DeMarc's mask is garbage.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's
not really. I mean, you gotta like. So the thing about Flawed 2 is like, Ken's still deciding how actual gameplay, like if it's best of 1, best of 3, whatnot. But we've been playing it as best of 1s, and sometimes like this wash away effect real good. Wash away 1 blue, destroy target item in the combat zone. This effect could be theoretically real good, but like if you put it in your deck and then you face that deck with literally 0 items, you're like, well, that's a resource, and that's another cool part about Flawed is your tech choices where you're like, okay, I'm gonna tech in wash away. If I see items, it's gonna be good. I'm gonna be able to get rid of an item, have a good time. And then against decks where you're like, oh, they're not playing items. Boom. Free resource.
It erases the need for a slide deck.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the big reasons that we're heavily considering best of 1. The games also, because they're so focused on board control and like incremental advantage and really push back, and you're really playing against your opponent. There's almost no automatic games. They tend to last a reasonable amount of time. Like most of your Flawed games are going to go between 15 to maybe even as long as 40 minutes for a really, really good game. And that's, you don't want to run a best of 3 format where every control matchup is finishing a best of 1 hour in 40
3
minutes.
hours later.
Yeah.
So you remember back when I lost $10 to Blandon, we rolled random decks.
Speaking of name dropping, geez.
Yeah.
We rolled random decks, and I got a deck that I thought was just fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is gonna be the easiest $10 I've ever stolen in my life. And so the other guy, he rolls like almost direct counter to the deck. Like, so my deck was heavily based on interaction and like killing their board state, and their deck was making me pay a lot more to do that. So much to the point where interaction in a lot of points in the game wasn't even really an option.
Yeah.
And even though his deck countered mine like pretty significantly, the game was actually pretty close.
The game was razor close. The game was literally down to 1 attack going each direction for 2 turns. And like it was on an absolute razor's edge, even though the matchup was like really, you had to play your deck kind of atypically. I think that your deck was also just arbitrarily more powerful than his, but you had to play it in a weird way. So it was an awesome game. I loved watching that game. Sorry about your $10, but that game was that was a great game.
It was really fun. We were both cheating. It was great.
You guys were both struggling a little, but that's okay. But yeah, Wash Away, this is an example of a tech card that you can put in your deck. Like, again, that's one of the greatest things about the game in general, is that your deck can be really like flexible and have like tech choices in it, and you can play like what might be considered like side deck cards in the main deck because they can always be a resource. And there's so Trollber cheats in money matches. Good to know. Yeah, you gotta watch him.
True.
Oh, Nick did it too, dude.
That brings us back to Careful Sneak. So that's pretty much the full look at the water cards. Took us about 80 minutes. That seems about how long I expected this to take.
I was thinking an hour and a half for the first stream, even though we were in for an hour.
Yeah.
So it's not bad.
Not bad at all.
But I do want to add something, Ken, if you don't mind.
Sure. Go for it.
I want to add to these streams to kind of like hype up to let people know how playtesting's going.
Yeah.
I want to add playtest highlight of the week.
Go for it.
Like deal.
Oh, that's
so
fun.
this
I like
past
that.
week, a super cool thing happened between Ken and I that I've never seen, and I think Ken's never seen before. In Flawed, you don't lose the game when you run out of cards in deck. So you keep playing with what's left in your hand and on the board. And I was able to I ran out of cards in my deck, and I was still able to push through lethal damage against Ken as he kept drawing through with that sides card that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
and I was able to like push through the lethal damage there with having literally 0 cards in deck, just beat him with what I had on the board. And we both stood up and were so hyped. It was just like it's just impressive to see that it's something that we're like, oh, theoretically this is how the game ends. But,
prophecy
you know,
is
like,
true.
yeah, we're like, are you actually gonna win when you have no cards in deck? You know, most people think in other card games are like, no, like I'm out of good draws, but you know, good navigation of the board and stuff like that. I was able to finally push through that last like 4 damage I needed.
That's crazy. Honestly,
Sometimes your last 3
was
cards are just like really good mid-range threats.
yeah,
Guy that comes in and kills a guy and has stealth, and then like
yeah.
whatever else. I'm just like, oh, I can't stop all this. I'm gonna die.
Yep.
It was a great game. Yeah, that was one of the better ones I played in a while.
Dude, when are the local live streams coming?
The local live streams, like I was actually playing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm down. I offered it to Ken the other day, and we
would almost certainly have to actually play on TTS because I don't have any hard copies printed with these.
Oh yeah, true.
Yeah.
But Ken and I can be in the
Which
same
actually
room
is
if you guys
probably
want to hear us
easier.
yelling at each other from a foot away.
True. Just
And I could be involved that way, actually.
there you go.
True.
But yeah, I mean, so right off the rip, I just want to say thank you to the we got like 8 or 10 people in here. This is awesome that you guys showed up and just kind of came to check it out. You know, see what's the deal with this water tribe and get kind of a feel for their mechanics. This is some really basic like set 1 stuff. Most of the set 1 tropes for each of the colors is really just kind of trying to define like their kind of slice of the pie, like what it is that they kind of do, and then you know, I'm going to dip into the Future League again. There are some more specific sort of design choices in like sets 2 and 3 where you get a lot more of like more of an archetype feel than just a generic here's the color, right? So we're kind of treating set 1 as more of a base set, an introductory set. You know, here are the type of things you can expect. And yeah, Waters, I mean, they've got a little bit of everything. I would say that they've got some pretty good coverage as far as like their events and stuff go, like Drown and the Disbelief, and like some of those cards are just really good at having like catch-alls. Even Wash Away is another, you know, just being able to destroy items. They've got some good stuff with that. Otherwise, I think that we do need to put a little bit of work into kind of their unit basis, like what they have available to play out on the curve at different points and stuff like that. But you know, as it stands, a lot of what you guys just saw there in that presentation of set 1 is going to stick. A lot of that's going to be, you know, on release, you're going to be seeing a lot of these cards. So again, just really thank you to my 2 co-hosts here, Rawl, the Lethal Protector, and Trollber coming in.
I'm the Rawl main here.
I don't know about that anymore. One of us has a Raw cosplay in the works, and one of us doesn't.
Right,
so.
The really funny side note between these two guys is that they both love big Earth ramp decks, and like their finisher of choice is this card called Rawl.
I don't love the rest of the.
Kenny, I'm a throne room main.
Sure, whatever you guys got to tell yourselves. But
I'm a Raw main. See, he just said throne room main.
Yeah.
So who's the real Raw main now?
All right, it might look weird, but I'll do the Dame Carey roleplay just to.
You guys could literally do like a Rawl roleplay where like one of you like stands on the other one's shoulders and like you guys just make him like super gigantic.
I like it.
It's like 11 feet tall.
Be perfect.
I like it. But yeah.
But all right, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and probably call it there. Be looking, you know, on the Patreon, Instagram, Twitter apparently is going to be a thing. You know, keep your eyes peeled for the next time we're going to do something like this. I really want to get the info out there and you know, start getting people kind of hype about this. I'm really excited to go forward with this and get it in people's hands. I think it's the best game I've ever played. Not close. And you know, that's
biased,
just me.
But also true.
It's a little bit biased.
Coming from a man that's probably touched 15, 16, like 20 card games. I definitely rank Flawed already near the top. Like Ken said at the very beginning, like I played one game and looked at him and I was like, I'm hooked. Like I'm in. Yeah. Let me play more of this.
Yeah. So yeah, okay. Thanks again to everybody for coming out. I really appreciate it. We'll do this again real soon.
See y'all.
See y'all.
Adios.